أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Lesson number 122, Surah Yusuf.
وَكَذَلِكَ يَجْتَبِيكَ رَبُّكَ. Likewise, your Lord is going to choose you. Now, Yaqub a.s. tells him about the interpretation of the dream. That what is the interpretation of your dream? That وَكَذَلِكَ, and likewise, meaning just as you saw in your dream, that the sun, the moon, the stars, they were prostrating before you. Likewise, Allah will choose you for what? For prophethood. To raise you in ranks. Yajtabika is from the root letters. Jim, Ba, Waw. Jabun. And Jabun is to collect something and then to take it away. So basically, it is to select something good and then bring it close to yourself. So Allah is going to choose you. He will raise you in ranks. He will assign you to be a prophet. وَيُعَلِّمُكَ, and He will also teach you from ta'weel al-ahadith, the interpretation of ahadith, of narratives. Allah will teach you this science, this knowledge. What does it mean by ta'weel al-ahadith? Ta'weel is from the root letters Hamza, Waw, Lam. Hamza, Waw, Lam. Awl, Awwal. And what does it mean? First. Awl is origin. And ta'weel literally is when something returns to its origin. When something is taken, is referred to its origin. So for example, when used for a speech, when used for a text, for a statement, ta'weel is to take something to its original intent. That what is meant by saying this? In other words, what's the interpretation? What's the tafseer? What's the meaning? What's the implication? What's the purpose? So ta'weel is first of all, what? Interpretation. And this is done through ilm, through knowledge, that you learn what is the purpose of the statement? What is the original intent of the statement? Like for example, in the Quran, we learn about the word khair. Khair means good, it also means wealth. In one context, you read the word khair, you wonder, what is the meaning that is intended over here? You wonder, what is the meaning that is intended over here? What's the purpose? What's the original intent? What do? You look at the context. You look at other verses. You look at the ahadith. And then you figure out, okay, since these ayat are about inheritance, then khair over here means wealth. So in a sense, ta'weel is interpretation of a text. How? Through ilm, knowledge. And secondly, it is also done how? Through amal, through action. To take something to its original meaning, to show it how? Through action. To show it through action, by making it happen. This is what was meant, and how do you show that? By making it happen. Which is why the word ta'weel is also used for the actualization of an event. Like for example, we learn about the Day of Judgment that يَوْمَ يَأْتِ تَأْوِيلًا, that when its actualization is going to occur. So, وَيُعَلِّمُكَ مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ, He will also teach you from the ta'weel of ahadith. Ahadith is the plural of hadith, and it's from the root letters ha, dal, sa. Literally, the word hadith means كَوْنُ الشَّيْء لَمْ يَكُنْ, when something happens that did not exist before. So what is it? How would you describe that? Something that is new. When something happens that did not exist before. So what is it? New. For example, an event or a statement. It wasn't said before, it has just been said. It didn't happen before, it just happened now. So what is it? A new thing. So from this, the word hadith is used for a speech. It is used for kalam. It is used for a saying, which is why it is also used for the sayings of who? The Prophet ﷺ. And it applies to every speech that reaches a person, whether it is through hearing or through revelation. Like for example, you're sitting and somebody tells you, you hear it. Or in the context of the Prophet, revelation is done to him, so he learns about it. Or it is that you see something happening and you learn about it. Or it is that you see something in a dream, you see something while you're awake from another person, etc. So hadith is what? Any speech that reaches a person. And the Quran is called ahsanul hadith, the best speech. The best speech. Now you may wonder that the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, why is it called hadith? Why is it called hadith? Because it is a statement that is passed on from people. Inshallah, when you will learn ulumul hadith, you will learn that there are two parts to a hadith. One is the text, and the other is the chain of narration. So it is narrated. People get to know about it by reading, hearing, by learning. And hadith is also used for a statement or a news that is not common between people. Generally, people are unaware of it. So Allah will teach you the ta'weel of ahadith. What does it mean by this, that He will teach you ta'weel of ahadith? This has been understood in a number of ways. First of all, ahadith has been understood as events or speech, the words of people, the events that occur. Allah will tell you the interpretation, the real meaning, the real understanding of events that occur, of the words that people say. Many times it happens that people say some things and you wonder, why did they say that? What did she mean by that statement? Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't get it. Some people are very quick to perceiving the hidden meaning, and other people are completely oblivious to them. Like for example, Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu, once he was extremely hungry. Extremely hungry. So he went to Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu and he asked him a question. Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu answered, that was it, finished. He didn't get it, that Abu Hurairah was hungry. He went to Umar radhiyallahu anhu. Even he didn't understand. Then he went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew that he was hungry. This is what? To understand the meaning of what the other person is saying to you, of what is happening, that you can interpret the situation and see what you're supposed to do, what's going on. It doesn't mean that you begin doubting everything. It doesn't mean that you begin to look at everything with suspicion, over-analyzing things. But what does it mean? That when you see a child who is crying, you can figure out he's crying because he has not eaten properly. Not that he's crying because he's very fussy and he just has very bad behavior and he's not disciplined at all. You understand the meaning. Secondly, ta'weel al-ahadith, ahadith also been understood as dreams. So Allah will teach you the interpretation of dreams. Allah will teach you the interpretation of dreams. Thirdly, ahadith has been understood as the narratives, or you can say the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah will teach you the understanding of His speech, of His commands, of His words, of His scriptures. This is the knowledge that Allah is going to give you. The knowledge of the deen. And by this He is indicating, again, prophethood and knowledge. For example, we know that when Surah An-Nasr, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ, when that was revealed, some people were very happy. Promise of victory. Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, he began to cry. Why? Because he knew what that meant. What did he understand? That this means the mission of the Prophet ﷺ is complete. And soon, he will pass away. He understood. So, this is called ta'weel al-ahadith, to understand the reality, the meaning, to be able to understand, interpret the text, the revelation. Not that a person interprets everything according to his own whims and desires, but that he gets it, he understands it, he's able to relate with it. So Allah will teach you the understanding of the religion. وَيُتِمَّ نِعْمَتَهُ عَلَيْكَ, and He will complete His favor upon you. Which favor? The favor of prophethood, the favor of guidance, and many other favors. He will complete them, He will perfect them upon you, وَعَلَى, and upon آلِ يَعْقُوب, the family of Yaqub alayhi salam. That Allah will perfect the blessing upon you and the family of Yaqub. How? By making you a prophet. Allah has given us many blessings, but when you will be given prophethood, the blessings will be perfected. Kama, just as, atammaha, He perfected it, ala, upon abawayka, your two fathers, min qablu, before. Which two fathers? Ibrahim wa Ishaq. Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ishaq alayhi salam. And who were they? Grandfathers, forefathers of Yusuf alayhi salam. How was a blessing perfected upon them? That they were made the prophets of Allah. And their children were made the prophets of Allah. So Allah will also perfect this blessing upon you and upon me, my family. How? By making you a prophet. Inna rabbaka, indeed your Lord, He is alimun, He is knowing of His creation. He knows as to who is worthy of being made a prophet. And He is hakim in the way that He manages the affairs of His creation. If you look at it, Yusuf a.s. had 11 other brothers. But he was selected for prophethood. Why? What was this based on? On the knowledge of Allah, on the wisdom of Allah. So over here we see that Yusuf a.s.'s father, he tells him the interpretation of his dream. And one of the things that he mentions is that Allah will teach you the interpretation of a hadith. If we take the meaning of a hadith to be wahi, revelation, then what does this show to us? That if a person is given the understanding of the book of Allah, that is a big blessing upon him. That's a very big blessing upon him. If a person is given the knowledge, the understanding of the book of Allah. Which is why the Prophet ﷺ said that مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. He gives him the understanding of religion. Because it's a huge favor. And this is why we should also take it as a big blessing of Allah, that we are being given the understanding of the book of Allah. Secondly, if we take the meaning of ta'wil al-ahadith to be interpretation of dreams, then with regards to interpretation of dreams, remember that there are 3 types of dreams. Because the dream was mentioned before, interpretation is mentioned here, and later on in the story, again we will learn about some dreams and their interpretations. And every other day someone comes up to me asking me about a dream. Know that there are 3 types of dreams. First of all, the first type of dream is hadithun nafs. What does it mean by that? Hadith, speech, and nafs of the person. Meaning whatever that a person sees in a day, he talks to him about it at night. He sees that in his dream. Something that a person really wants should happen, he sees that. Like for example, a person really wants to travel somewhere, and he sees in a dream that, oh, he's traveling over there. A person really wants to eat a particular food, and he sees that he's eating that food. A person sees someone in a very nice car, and he sees that, oh, he's driving the same car. This is what? Hadithun nafs. Whatever happens during the day, whatever that you want should happen, you see that in your dream. So this kind of a dream is what? An idle dream. It doesn't really have a meaning. Sometimes people have these chaotic dreams that don't make any sense. Any sense whatsoever. They started from one place, they ended up in another, and all of a sudden something happened, and all of a sudden something did not happen. I mean, one thing after the other. This is what? Idle dreams. Hadithun nafs. The second type of dream is the dream which comes from shaitan. And you can understand them as nightmares. Basically, it's a dream in which a person becomes very scared, very fearful, very afraid. Something bad happens and he wakes up frightened, he wakes up crying, he wakes up screaming. It happens with children as well. And this is from who? Shaitan. Because shaitan, he's our enemy and he wants to harm us. And one of the ways that he adopts is by disturbing our sleep, by making us fearful, by making us afraid. So that we get afraid in the dark, we cannot sleep during the night, and then during the day, we're all tired and exhausted. And also for children, sometimes what happens? They're sleeping perfectly fine, and all of a sudden the child wakes up crying, screaming. And this will disturb the sleep of the parents, which will affect their salah, which will affect their day. This comes from who? Shaitan. The third type of dream is the good dream. You can say the real dream. The dream that has some meaning to it. And this dream is understood as mubashirat. They are known as mubashirat. Remember earlier we learned that lahumul bushra. And good news is what? In the dunya, a good dream. What kind of a dream is this? This dream is that which is vivid, it is clear, and when you wake up, you actually remember it. Sometimes you wake up in the morning and you like, what did I dream last night? You have no idea. But sometimes you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden you remember the dream that you had, and you can remember it fully, completely, clearly. It's very vivid. And you remember it over and over again. It comes to your mind again and again. This is the dream that is real, and it's the good dream. It has some meaning to it. So we should focus on these kind of dreams and not the other kind of dreams. Now, common people, they have all these three types of dreams. They have hadithun nafs, they have nightmares, and they also have good dreams. But the messengers, they only have the third type of dream, which is the dream that is real, that has some meaning to it. Because remember that the prophets, they even get revelation in their dreams. The Prophet ﷺ said that the good dreams of a believer is a part of the 46 parts of prophethood. What does it mean by that? That if a person gets a good dream, he becomes a prophet? No. The fact is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala communicated with the prophets through different ways, even through dreams. So if a person is given a good news or something about the future in his dream, then this is the only way that is left in which Allah communicates with the people, through dreams. Now, Yusuf a.s., he was not a prophet at this time. Isn't it so? When he had this dream, he was not a prophet at this time. But he received good news through this dream. So you understand? It was a true dream, it was a good dream, and he received good news through this dream. That a time will come that your brothers and your parents will bow before you. In other words, Allah will honor you. And Yusuf a.s.'s dream, it did become a reality. But you know after how long? 40 years. 40 years. Sometimes we think if we have a good dream, we should see something. Something should happen. But I dreamt that I met this particular family member. I haven't seen him since the past 5 years. When is it going to be fulfilled? Allah knows. But it's just a reassurance to you that inshallah someday you will meet them. So similarly, this dream, it was fulfilled 40 years later. And inshallah we will learn about the interpretation of this dream towards the end of the surah in ayah number 100. Now, when it comes to dreams, especially good dreams, what are the teachings that have been given to us? What should we do about them? Should we tell everybody about it? Should we just rely completely on the dreams? What should we do? The Prophet ﷺ said that a good dream is from Allah. It is from who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if any one of you sees a dream that he likes, if you see a dream that you like, then he should not tell it to anybody except to the one whom he loves. He should not go on publicizing his dreams. He should tell who? The one whom he loves. And if he saw a dream which he disliked, then he should seek refuge with Allah from its evil and from the evil of shaitan. And he should spit 3 times on his left, and should not tell it to anybody, for it will not harm him. So from this hadith, what do we learn? 2 things. When you have a good dream, don't go on telling everybody about it. Only tell who? Those whom you love. Those people whom you have a good relationship with. Those whom you trust. Those who are sincere to you. Like for example, Yusuf a.s. told his father. So similarly, you tell your mother. You share with your sister. For example, if she's very close to you and you know that she's very sincere to you. You maybe share with a teacher. You maybe share with a friend. Secondly, if you have a bad dream, what are you supposed to do? Don't tell anybody about it, and also seek refuge with Allah. Because it's from shaitan. So seek refuge with Allah and spit 3 times on your left. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, he would always ask his companions after Fajr as to who saw a dream. Because many times people, they completely disregard dreams. People have extremes. Either they believe firmly on dreams, or they completely reject dreams. But we see that we should adopt the way of moderation, the way of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ used to ask the companions. For example, Samura ibn Jundab, he said that whenever the Prophet ﷺ finished the morning prayer, he would face us and he would ask, who amongst you had a dream last night? So if anyone had seen a dream, he would narrate it. To who? The Prophet ﷺ. And then the Prophet ﷺ would say, MashaAllah, that's a good dream. So if you have a true dream, then you can tell someone whom you know is a well-wisher. But if you think that that person has jealousy, that person has animosity against you, then don't tell them at all. And the Prophet ﷺ also said that the dream is tied to a bird's leg as long as it is not interpreted. If it is interpreted, it becomes true. Now it doesn't mean literally it is tied to a bird's leg. This is an expression which means that it's in the air, it's free, but when you interpret it, then it becomes fixed. The dream is in the air, it's not fixed, but once you interpret it, then what does it mean? That is what's going to happen. This is why do not be hasty in interpreting dreams. And don't tell your dreams to people who are hasty in interpreting dreams. Just recently someone was telling me about somebody who they knew and they had a dream and they told their friends about it. And they interpreted immediately saying something very negative. Very negative. And that same thing happened. Whereas if you looked at the dream with another perspective, it would have a very good meaning. When I was told that dream, I thought it was a very good dream. But the people who heard that dream, they interpreted it in a very negative sense, and that same thing happened. So what do we learn? When you have a dream, whether good or bad, don't be hasty in interpreting. And don't go on to any person telling them, what do you think? Asking them, what do you think about my dream? Be very careful. So if you look at it, what should be done? If you have a dream, ask Allah. That, oh Allah, whatever khair there is, decree that for me. And if there is any shar, avert that from me. All matters are in your hands, all good and evil comes from you. You don't even need to go and tell other people about it. Just keep that between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is showing it to you in a dream. So keep it between you and Allah, unless if you want to share it with someone who's a mentor, who really wishes well for you, who has been instructing you, guiding you, then you can share with them. And another very important thing is that a person should refrain from narrating false dreams. Because sometimes we think that if you have a good dream, you're very pious, very righteous, you're up there. So just to impress other people, sometimes what do people do? They narrate dreams that are completely false. They never saw them. Complete lies. Just to show their piety. Just to show their righteousness. This is not correct. This is not acceptable at all. In fact, it's a big sin. And also remember that dreams, they do not abrogate the Quran and Sunnah. What does it mean by that? Dreams, they do not abrogate the Quran and Sunnah. What does it mean? That if there is a hukum that is clear in the Quran and Sunnah, and you have a dream, for example, in which you see that the Prophet ﷺ tells you, you don't need to pray. You're going to go to paradise. You don't need to respect your parents. Then does that mean you don't need to respect your parents? You don't need to pray? No. You have to do it. Because it's possible that shaitan comes in the form of a very righteous person, lying to you, showing that he is very righteous, telling you things that are evil. I remember my father was telling me once that this man was brought to him, and he was brought by his parents, and they were very concerned about him. And when he spoke to him, he said that, I don't pray anymore. I don't need to pray salah. He said, why? I saw in a dream. The Prophet ﷺ told me, you don't need to pray. You're going to go to paradise. So therefore, I don't pray anymore. And he had so much conviction in that dream that I saw the Prophet and he told me, so I don't need to pray. But what do we learn? That dreams, they do not abrogate the Quran and Sunnah. They don't cancel it out. Because dreams, they can come from your own nafs, they can come from the shaitan, they can also come from Allah. How do you know which dream is which? You don't know the unseen. You don't know the unseen. So if you see a good dream, ask Allah for goodness. If you see a bad dream, seek Allah's protection. So for example, some people, they leave Islam as well, they leave their religion as well based on dreams. That they see in a dream that somebody is telling them, I am Jesus, I am God, come to me, accept me, leave this religion, and they follow those dreams. This is not correct. Dreams do not give you Sharia. Remember that. They gave Sharia to who? The prophets only, not to us. We're not prophets, we're ordinary human beings. So, as a conclusion, what do we learn about dreams? That if you have a good dream, share it with who? Someone who is a well-wisher to you. If you have a bad dream, don't tell anybody about it. And don't be hasty in interpreting dreams. Do not be hasty. Do not be too quick. Rather, it's better to remain silent about it. And sometimes what happens, you have a dream, you share it with someone and you think, I think this is what it means. It's not a guess game. With regards to the interpretation of dreams, there are some interpretations that we, for example, learn from the Quran and Sunnah. For example, the sun demonstrates the father. The moon demonstrates the mother. The stars, they demonstrate the siblings. Prostration of them shows that you are going to be given honor, authority above them. And similarly, the Sahaba also, they told the Prophet ﷺ about their dreams. And the Prophet ﷺ, he would interpret them. So if you find certain interpretations from the Quran and Sunnah, they are okay. Similarly, if you see the sun, if you see something similar, perhaps that's exactly what it means for you as well, representing the father or the mother. So if it's based on the Quran and Sunnah, it's authentic. But other interpretations, they are based on the opinions of the scholars. What are they based on? Opinions of the scholars. Again, we're not belittling them, we're not rejecting them. They are based on their observation and experience. They're based on their observation, their experience, their reflection. So when you see a dream, and you open up a book, Ta'bir al-Ru'ya, or another book, and you see the interpretation over there, you can seek some guidance from it, but don't be like, okay, this is definitely what it means. There's no need to believe in it with that much conviction. And at the end of the day, leave the matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you see a dream about someone, it depends on what kind of a dream it is. If it's evil, you don't need to tell them about it. You should not tell them about it. Rather, you should pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for their good, for them to be protected. If you see something good about them, then perhaps you can tell them. But again, don't be hasty. Don't be hasty. Like for example, you see your friend, she comes to your house driving a brand new car, which is white, sparkling, very nice. It's a good dream. It's a good sign. So you can tell her. It doesn't mean you go tell other people about it. Perhaps they will become envious. So who do you tell? That person only, or someone who wishes good for them. And with regards to bad dreams, there are several masnoon du'as, which inshallah you can find in your Iyaka Nasta'een book as well. That, for example, if you see a bad dream, turn to Allah and make dua that أعوذ بكلمات الله التامة من غضبه وعقابه وشر عباده ومن همزات الشياطين وأن يحضرون. And there are several other supplications that we can pray upon seeing a bad dream. Before getting up and calling someone, what should we do? Turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's listen to the recitation of this ayah. Just one more point with regards to dream interpretation. If you ever ask someone about interpretation of your dream, don't think that that person knows the unseen. Because sometimes people will go up to others asking them, what does my dream mean? And they will not leave them until they tell them about some interpretation, thinking that they have some knowledge of the unseen. Remember, the best person to interpret the dream is the person who sees the dream, because he knows what's going on in his life, or someone who is very close to them, who knows as to what's going on in their life. And once the interpretation has been done, it's fixed. And if it's not good, if it's not bad, if it's confusing, it's hadithun nafs. You don't know what happened. It's not definite that if you see something, then it definitely means, a particular kind of interpretation. It's all relevant to the person, to the situation, to what's going on in his life, etc. Listen to the recitation of all of these ayats from the beginning, and then we'll continue, because now the story begins as well.
حكيم